New Smithsonian Channel documentary about the inequalities in healthcare that really got exposed during the COVID-19 pandemic. We have Emmy Award-winning director Yance Ford and Dr. Cunningham here to chat all about it. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Yance, I want to go ahead and ask you first, at what point during the pandemic did you realize this needs to be made into a documentary?
Actually, it was Miss Winfrey and her colleagues at Harpo Productions who reached out after she read an article about Gary Fowler, a man who lived in Detroit and had sought treatment for his COVID symptoms at 3 separate institutions and was sent home by each of those institutions because apparently he wasn't sick enough to treat. When they brought the story to my attention, we immediately began talking about making a documentary based on both what happened to Mr. Fowler, but what was also happening to Black and Brown people around the country facing health disparities when seeking treatment for COVID-19.
Dr. Cunningham, I want to ask you, as far as your work and what you saw during the pandemic, obviously, at the beginning we saw, we were told to wash our hands and stay away from everybody, but a lot of, communities of color, Black and Brown communities had a lack of PPE, had multi-generational homes, had jobs that they weren't able to, work from home, that, if you didn't go to work, you didn't get paid, lack of insurance. Talk a little bit about, what you saw there.
So the disparities that you mentioned are so real, and our Black and Brown communities, people of color, were at the front lines caring for the rest of the country, for everybody really, while many people of privilege were able to stay home. And so they paid a tremendous price for that. And in addition to the lack of insurance and the difficulties that you mentioned, and some of the disparities that have been highlighted, like pre-existing conditions, the other very real disparity is the inequity in services and good hospitals, up-to-date equipment, number of people available to care in poor communities, and not just poor communities, but in Black and Brown communities that have been created through national programs that segregated people in our country. And so when we saw these disparities arising in COVID, it's not a surprise to anyone who's paying attention, and it could have been avoided.
Yes, I do want to ask you, as far as COVID-19, obviously now it's turned into a political topic, and everybody has been so divided as far as, how they feel it was treated, how they go about it in the future. How are you hoping this documentary brings people together and gets a new lens as far as, maybe misinformation we might have seen out there?
I think that this documentary and my greatest hope for it is that we return our conversation about COVID-19 back to the people who were impacted by COVID-19. I think that the political lens that has been dropped over the pandemic is an unfortunate one because it obscures our ability to see the consequences, the life and death consequences that were paid by many Black and Brown people across the country due to their lack of access to proper care and proper treatment. So if anything, people who tune into the Smithsonian Channel Sunday at 8 Eastern, 7 Central, they will be able to return to the humanity at the heart of the COVID-19 pandemic.
How are you hoping that the information that we see in this is going to shape the future, especially, going into the summer? You're seeing about new variants, you're hearing about rising cases. People just came back from spring break, and I've been hearing, several families who got it while they were there, not just one person, but the entire family. And it doesn't feel like we're out of it, just yet.
So I think that, I heard something the other day that really described it really well. And it was a little jingle that said, "COVID-19's not over just because you're over it." What I hope that this film will do is to remind people that COVID's actually not going anywhere. We have to settle into the fact that this is going to be a chronic issue for us to deal with season by season, but also year to year. And the more we sort of settle into, things like mask wearing and social distancing as a way of preventing the transmission of COVID-19, just the way in which we eventually settled into sneezing into our elbows, and washing our hands to prevent the transmission of the common cold. I think that will, help people really wrap their minds around the fact that COVID's not actually going to go away. Yes, it will get better, but it's not going to end. And I think that people have to start to accept that.
The other thing I would say is this movie brings us together in our shared humanity. And I think that's going to be crucial moving forward.
That is definitely going to be crucial. The Color of Care premiering Sunday, May 1st on the Smithsonian Channel. Thank you both so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.